Have you ever really thought about what happens when you click I agree online? Or what turns a simple handshake deal into something that's actually enforceable? Well, today, we're pulling back the curtain on the hidden architecture of every single agreement you make.
Welcome to another explainer in our Fiqh for Economists series. It's great to have you with us.
So here's the big question for today. What's the secret sauce? What really transforms a casual promise into a solid, ethically sound contract that everyone has to respect? It all boils down to a few core principles. In Islamic law, these are known as shurūt, or conditions, and you can think of them as a series of mandatory checkpoints. If an agreement doesn't pass through every single one of these gates, then legally speaking, the contract doesn't even exist. It's that critical.
So here's what we've got on tap for today. We'll kick things off with what makes a contract valid in the first place. Then we'll get into what I call the divine rulebook. After that, we'll look at how you can add your own custom terms, figure out the difference between a valid and a void condition, and see how this all plays out in our modern world. Oh, and definitely stick around because we've got a quick quiz at the end to see what you've learned.
All right, let's dive right in. At its heart, every single valid contract stands on two fundamental pillars. Once you get these two, everything else just clicks into place.
So you can see it right here. On one side, you have the conditions that are said by Sharīʿah. This is the rule book. It's non-negotiable and ensures everything is fair and legitimate. And on the other side, you have the conditions that you and the other party agree on. This is like the custom addendum you create together.
So let's start with that rulebook. These are the foundational conditions, the ones that guarantee every contract is built on a solid base of clarity, fairness, and justice for everyone involved. Now this rulebook breaks down into four essential stages. We've got conclusion, then validity, then execution, and finally bindingness. Each step is a checkpoint that the agreement has to clear. Let's walk through each one.
First up, the conditions of conclusion. This is square one. You've got to have a clear offer and a clear acceptance. Both people need to be legally capable of making a deal, of sound mind and all that. And, of course, the subject of the contract has to be lawful. For some specific contracts, there are extra requirements, like needing witnesses for a marriage or physically handing over a gift to make it official.
Okay, next up is validity, and this is a massive ethical check. For a contract to be valid, it has to be free from any major uncertainty, what's known as gharar. It also has to be free from ignorance about key details, any kind of deception, or, really importantly, any form of coercion. Basically, was the deal fair and square for everyone?
And finally, we have execution and bindingness. For execution, it's simple. You have to actually have the authority to make the deal. You can't sell your neighbor's car, right? As for bindingness, a deal isn't totally locked in until any special options or Khiyār are settled. For instance, if you have a 3-day right to inspect a product, the contract isn't fully binding until that period ends and you give the final okay. Okay, so we've covered the Fiqh rulebook. Now for the really interesting part. This is where you get to customize the deal by adding your own terms. It's all about balancing those divine rules with our own practical needs.
Now, you can't just add anything you want. There are a few guidelines. Any term you add has to actually align with the contract's main purpose. It can't go against any clear prohibitions, and it should be beneficial in something that's customary or urf. A perfect example? A buyer arranging with a seller to pay in a few installments instead of all at once. That's a classic valid party-added condition.
This brings us to a super important point. When you're adding your own terms, how do you know what's okay and what's, well, not okay? Let's draw that line nice and clear. So what's totally fine? Things like asking for a pledge or a guarantor to secure a loan, or a seller holding on to an item until the final payment is made. And all those things we take for granted, like a warranty on a new phone or a store's return policy, those are perfectly valid because they're customary and build trust.
Now, for the other side of the line, what's prohibited? Basically, any condition that creates injustice or leads to interest, or riba, is a no-go. For example, you can't tie two separate deals together, like saying, I'll loan you money, but only if you buy my car. Another big one is in a partnership, you can't promise a fixed, guaranteed profit, because that kills the whole idea of sharing risk.
All right, I know some of this might sound a little academic, but I promise you these principles are alive and well, and they are shaping everything from your bank account to the future of technology.
Let's make it real. In places like Malaysia, Islamic banking contracts often have custom terms like rebates for paying on time, or clauses for Islamic insurance, known as takaful. And think about the last time you bought something online. That return policy on Shopee or Lazada, that's a perfect modern example of a customary, valid condition in action.
And this isn't just about today. It's about tomorrow. Think about blockchain and smart contracts. You can literally program a contract to execute automatically only when all the conditions are met. Imagine a house sale where the deed transfers the exact moment the payment is confirmed. That's these ancient principles of clarity and fairness powering cutting-edge tech.
All right, we've covered a ton of ground. I think it's time to put your newfound knowledge to the test. Let's see how you do with a few quick questions. Ready?
Question number 1. Which one of these conditions would be considered void or not allowed? Is it A, a seller offering a guarantee period? B, a loan that's tied to buying another product? C, an agreement for a down payment? Or D, a buyer specifying a delivery timeline?
Okay, question 2. That really important rule that a contract has to be free from uncertainty, gharar, and any form of coercion. Which of those 4 Sharia categories does that fall into? Is it A, conclusion, B, validity, C, execution, or D, bindingness?
And our final question for today. That online shopping return policy we talked about, what's the best way to describe that type of valid condition? Is it A, something that confirms a Sharia effect? B, a condition that contradicts the contract's purpose? C, a customarily accepted condition? Or D, a condition of bindingness?
So, what do you think? Go ahead and drop your answers for questions 1, 2, and 3 in the comments below. I'd love to see what you came up with. It was awesome going through all this with you today. Thanks so much for watching, and we'll catch you on the next explainer.